What's up guys, Phoenix Fire here. I figured I'd start off the day with a beginner's guide to Final Fantasy XIV, because there's a lot of stuff that goes on right at the start and a lot of people get a little bit confused. So we're going to start by making a new character. Now, for those of you who aren't aware, Final Fantasy XIV is a subscription-based MMO. So you pay $14.99 a month for the standard to have a couple characters on a server. In my opinion, it is fully worth it. I've been doing it for about 6 years now and I haven't regretted a single subscription. So we're going to start off by picking our race and gender. Each race, except for the last two, has a male and female ratio. The higher is the usual human-based look. The Elezen is your elf look. The Lalafell are your tiny little people. The Mikote are your cat, girl, or male, whichever one you choose. The Rigodin is the giant, massive human being looking thing. The Aura are your dragon people. Now, Final Fantasy XIV has a few expansions. It has Heaven's Ward, Stormblood, and Shadowbringers. The base game is a Realm Reborn. Everything above the dragon is base game. You have to have Heaven's Ward for the Aura, and you have to have Shadowbringers for the Hrothgar and the Viera. As you can see, the Viera is kind of like the kind of like Fran from one of the earlier Final Fantasy games. So we're gonna pick our character, pick a gender, whatever you prefer. Down at the bottom, if you click the R3 or the L3, you can change their pose or their attire. R2 and L2 can change your background, should you wish to put it in a different area. I should probably put some clothes on him. For this, I think we'll go with just a regular old human. There's different clans. The attributes are different based on the clan that you get. However, it doesn't really play a very vital role in the stat realm of the game. So you can really just pick whichever one you like the most. So we're gonna go with Midlander. Now there's a lot of options. There's height, muscle tone, skin color, hairstyles, hair color, face, jaw, eye shape, iris size, eye color, eyebrows, nose, mouth, lip color, facial features, tattoos, tattoo color, face paint color, and voice. That's a lot of options. So you pick his height, you pick his muscle tone, skin color, however you prefer it. And you pick its hairstyle. It's all based on preference. You can pick whichever one you want. It does not matter. You can even add highlights if you want them to have a little interesting look to them. And you're going to pick their face type. You can adjust the individual features, but this is the overall look. Jaw type. You got your eye shape, your iris size, your eye color. You can even have odd eyes. So you can have one color and the other a completely different color. You can adjust your eyebrows. You can choose however bushy or however thin as you want. Your nose is next. If you want a big nose, if you want a goofy looking character, you pick. Your mouth type is next. Not sure if you want to look like Kim Kardashian, but there you go. Your lip color. You don't have to have a lip color. Your facial features. They give you a couple different scars. You can pick your tattoos. You can change their colors. Then you got your face paint. Your face paint color and your voice. There's multiple types of voices. Just depends on which one you prefer. If you prefer a high-pitched or really low-pitched. Type 4 is your average for the male. You can choose to save your appearance data to pull it up later should you like the way that you made your character, and when you start a new one you can just pull up the previous settings that you set. Then you're gonna pick its birthday. The character's birthday does not matter. You can pick whichever one. If you start at the top, it goes January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, and December. And you just pick your day. These are the gods or goddesses that you worship. It doesn't matter. Just pick a random one. Whichever one sounds cool or whichever one is the god of whatever you like. Alright, now you've got your classes. Your starting classes, you can choose between Disciple of War and a Disciple of Magic. Gladiator is a tank. Tanks play a role of taking all the damage away from everyone else. And so is Marauder. Pugilist, Lancer, and Archer are all DPS, damage per second. They focus on doing a lot of damage. Disciples of Magic. Your Conjurer is your healer. Thaumaturge is your DPS, like a black mage. Your Arcanist is your pet person, so they can summon a pet that can help them out in battle. We're gonna go with the Gladiator. Now you're gonna select your world. There are multiple worlds. You can choose whichever one you prefer. It does not matter. Some of the ones up here, like Lamia, has an increase to experience. If you've got that star, it means you get a bonus to experience for all new players. However, it looks like it's so congested that they've shut it down for a little bit and no more new characters can be made on that server. So we're gonna go with Ultros. You're gonna pick your name, whatever your preference is. We'll see if my name's actually taken or not. Yep, it's taken. Alrighty, and then you're just gonna begin. It'll start off with a cutscene, but since this is an explanation video, we're gonna go ahead and skip it. Feel free to watch it though, it has some important story parts inside of it. It might leave you a little confused though. This next part might take a little while, so I'm going to try and make it as fast as possible in as little time as I can, so we can make this at least as painless as possible. Alright, so now that we've finally loaded, it'll introduce you to whatever city you're going to start out at. Some classes start out at different cities from other ones. Some of them start out in the desert city, some of them start out in a sea breeze city, and some of them start out in a forest city. Lets you choose whether or not you are controller or mouse or keyboard. It does not matter, it's just depending on whatever you're using. These little pop-ups are called active help members. Active help windows. Sorry about that. They pop up as things come across, and when you click on them, they give you information about whatever just popped up. So this one is about initiating quests. When you first start the game, there's a lot you kind of want to look into. The first thing you should worry about is your hotbar. In order to adjust your hotbar, all you have to do is hold L2 or R2, whichever side you're doing, hit the pad button, and then adjust the adjacent skill. Just like that. The next step is going through your settings. So there's a lot of them, so I will try to make this quick. Movement settings, I mean, they're automatically put decent. You can see what all's already set. For the cutscene skipping, you can skip playback of previously viewed transportation scenario or housing cutscenes. It's useful if you don't want to see the dungeon intro every single time you go into it. There's a lot of things that you can do. You can do highlight potential targets. That will put a small yellow line around whoever you target before actually clicking on them. You've got your filters. I've never really messed with those. They're pretty set to the way they are. And then your character settings. Display headgear. Display main hand or offhand gear when sheathed. And then you can adjust your auto sheath delay or your idle animation delay. I always randomize my idle animation, so my character is always moving around a little bit. Since we aren't using a mouse, we won't really go over those, but as you can see, they can... It's a shortcut based thing. Your inventory settings are pretty much however you like them. So, inventory interface, under normal circumstances, has tabs, like this. When you set it to expanded, it will look like this. So it has less tabs, but it's a bigger window. It's all based on however you play the game, however you decide that you want it. UI settings, this has to do with your interface, you know, everything that's popped up on your screen, everything that you want, your recommendations you can have upon login or upon area change. I always remove it. I'm going to keep active help windows on, although I usually remove it, just so as they pop up we can go through them. Your HUD has a bunch of different things. It's got your parameter bars, experience bars. The only thing I would suggest is hiding the duty list under instance and non-instance duties. That means your quest list when you're in a dungeon will not be popped up and it will not be in your way. Also gives you a little bit more room on the screen. You want to make sure that you've got Eorzean time for all you gatherers and crafters. That'll be explained on a later date. You can choose to display your current world name. You can hide all your quests when the main scenario is complete. And this down here, display target's remaining HP percentage, I always add that so you can exactly see how much the boss has, or any of your enemies. This is your party list. You can choose to display your party list when you are solo, or not. Display name settings, there's not really a reason to change much of this, unless you want to reduce the amount of names that pop up for people that aren't on your friend list. You can also change the colors. So I always set party members to green, and alliance members to pink. That way you can discern them pretty easily. And I always make NPCs yellow. Makes it easier to pick out specific people in a crowd. Your hotbar settings, these you really don't need to play too much with. The way your hotbar... Oh, I went outside of that little area. He wasn't too happy about that. The way your hotbar is set up, it's pretty solid. You shouldn't need to change too much of it. You can experiment with this later on. This is more advanced than what is really necessary at the current moment. And this custom expanded controls, this is something you'd experiment way later on in the game. Log window settings, this is all about your chat log. You can enable profanity filter, you can let people link things to the log, you can adjust your log filters, your log details, and your notification sounds. Alrighty, that covers that. The difference between character configuration and system configuration. System applies to the whole thing. So when you make a new character, your system configuration is not messed with. Character configuration, every time you make a new character, you have to go through these settings all over again if you want them back to the way you usually play. System configuration is pretty simple. It's mostly just your audio, your controller settings like vibration, mouse settings if you choose to use those, your display settings, your theme settings. This was recently added, so now you have a dark and a light, and your other settings like time until AFK or cutscene audio. Next and last, probably the one that would take you a little adjusting and a lot of moving around, is HUD layout. Everything on your screen can be moved. It's a beautiful thing. I highly suggest that you take the time to find that little screen that you like the most. Under the one exception of the chat window, because for whatever reason, you can't move it unless you have a mouse. I won't really go over that. That's something that you guys can experiment with for as long as you want. So, for the most part, that sets up your settings, that sets up your character. The only thing I want to talk about now is free companies. Free companies in this game, you'll most likely get a invite to one at some point, because you can just throw an invite to any player that isn't set to busy. A free company is a player-made guild. You don't have to stay in one. You can get out of one the moment you get into it, or you can create your own. It's all about the community that you want to be in. This is something that you have to decide whether or not you like it, whether or not you want to be in one. There are benefits to being in a free company that include having increased battle experience, so you can level up a little bit faster. There's a lot of different things that a free company can offer, other than just the social aspect of the game. I touched up on roles a little bit earlier, but there are quite a few of them. There is a lot of classes in this game, and one of the beautiful things about this game is when you reach level 10 in your current class, as mine is the gladiator, you can unlock other classes and switch between them at any point. Unless you're in a dungeon, for obvious reasons. All this down here, this is all the different classes. All these up here are battle, these are gathering, and these are crafting. Your first four here are tanks, the three afterwards are healers. This one, monk, dragoon, ninja, and samurai are all melee, DPS. Bard, machinist, and dancer are all ranged DPS. And the last four are all magic DPS. There's a lot of options and you can be every single one of them. However, you do have to level them all individually. So if you're the grinding type, that's what you gotta do. I'm a completionist myself, so obviously I have to have everything at level whatever the cap is. The only thing left now is just the active help menu and a couple of things on the main menu. There's a lot of different options. Stance changes whether or not you sheath or unsheath your weapon. You can click L3 to do the same instead of doing that every single time. Your actions and traits, all the actions you have and the actions you will learn. Your role, traits, main commands, these are things that are on your main menu. General has your sprint, your limit break, repair, all that stuff. We'll go through all this in a separate video just to make sure that we get a full in-depth explanation of each of the roles. You've got your currency, character information, You've got your armory chest, that's where all your armor goes. It is different from your inventory. Your chocobo saddlebag, you'll unlock that later, but it's basically extra inventory space. Your companion, that would be your mount. Your mount is a chocobo and it can fight with you. That's later on, I'll explain that later on. Your mount guide, your minion guide. Minions don't fight, but they're just decoration for the player. Your blue magic spellbook, your PvP profile, gold saucer, and achievements. Right next to that is duty. Anything that has to do with dungeons or raids or anything of that nature is right here. So your duty finder is all your raids, guild hests, dungeons, all that stuff. Your raid finder is some high level stuff, so you probably won't unlock that for a long time. Trust was recently introduced. I'll touch up on that at another time. Your logs, you've got different logs. Travel, teleport, return, simple stuff. Your party menu, I'm sure you guys know a little bit about that. Your social menu has to do with your player search, emotes, housing, PvP team, all that stuff. And then your system, as we already went over at one point. So I think that just about explains everything that you want to go through at the very start. So if you have any questions or concerns, just put them in the comments below. Thanks for watching.